Welcome, everybody. We are very happy you're here with us. We have, as Tiffany said, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to try to be to the point and just guide you the best I can through the material so that we will have enough time to hear from our guest, Angela, who has a lot of experience with internships, and she will have a lot also to teach us today in this webinar, but also to give time for you to ask questions. So I just want to say that as I speak, feel free to write in chat whenever you have questions, and we will definitely get to them, and we'll give you a chance at the end for questions and answers when we finish the webinar. So starting with what we're going to cover today in this webinar, I'll give you a quick brief overview. We're going to talk about what is an internship. I know this is very simple. So in very simple terms, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about the search process. What does the search process consist of? What are the components of an internship applications? Because those components pretty much, as you will see, they're very close to applying to jobs. So knowing them well is important for you to be able to know how to search and how to land the right place. We're also going to talk about how do you evaluate opportunities? When you see different internship opportunities, how do you decide this one is right, this one is better, this one maybe I shouldn't put too much into applying for, and so on. And then I'm going to give you, based on research and experience working with students, the top tips for landing the right internships. These are tips you must consider at all times. I would consider them like the golden tips for all of you to think about. And then we are getting to our guest speaker, Angela Nantambe, who will talk to us about her experience and her knowledge in this area that I think many of you, all of you will find extremely important as a guidance also. So let's begin, my friends. I will start by asking you a question, if you don't mind, all of you, to write in 1 or 2 sentences in chat. We'll take a couple minutes for you to tell me, what do you hope to gain from an internship? 1 or 2 sentences. So tell me, if you get an internship, what is your hope? What would you like to get out of it? This is a good way for us to also know where are you and how do you feel about this. I will be reading responses as they come in chat and commenting. Practical experience, excellent, of course. Industry standards, paid leads to full-time job, really good. I love it. I mean, you're already talking from the heart of what this is about, for sure. This is the core. On-job hand experience, practical learning experience, networking, excellent. Apply, have learned my field. Apply what you learned in your field, very good. Yes. Consistency, professional learning, experience and networking, very good. These are exactly the right places. You're all in the right way of thinking. Required skills needed for the corporate world or the professional world. Welcome, we're happy you're here. Experience, of course, very good. Gain knowledge, experience and networking. You all are hitting exactly in the right places here. Apply for a job, yes, for sure. It's really important. Get skills in my chosen field, for sure, yes. I love this, and I'm going to say the first thing I'll talk about actually after this poll is this exact point, the point of experience. Experience and knowledge, put theory into practice, fantastic. Discover my interest, I love that, I love it. Discover my interest. This is really good because you discover things as you try this and you see what works, what doesn't work. Maybe something you thought was great, you will discover through experience, maybe I want something else or another direction. Developing my skills, very, very good. Yes. So you can keep writing and we will move to the next slide. Thank you so much for sharing these thoughts. They're exactly right on point, on target. I want to say that working with students, one thing that I've always noticed as a big challenge is the egg and chicken question. People tell me, any job I want to apply to wants experience, but I don't have experience until I get a job, right? Especially if you're young and you're fresh of school or any educational training you get. So there's always that dilemma. And so an internship comes as a really good solution. It's not the only one, by the way. So for example, you can get entry-level jobs right after finishing your school or training or certificates, whatever you're doing. but it's a really good solution that bridges the learning with employment in a very good way. So that kind of answers that. But there are other ways like community service and other things. I just want to emphasize it's not the only way. It's a really good way. So it is the core of the issue that a lot of us struggle with. How do you get experience if you don't have a job? How do you get a job if you don't have experience, and start building that resume? An internship then is a short-term, usually, work experience that provides students or early career professionals with experiential learning opportunity. I love that somebody said, I want to discover, and this is the discovery also. It's a really good point for discovery, to see what you know, what you're working on, and discover it through this experience, and finding out what is really your passion, what works, what doesn't. Internships can be related to your field of education or training, or to another potential career. So they can be related to more than one area, and it's good to discover as many areas as you can in internship. However, and I'll talk a little bit later about this, make sure that it's always within your career planning, not very different, that will not end up counting or adding weight to your resume, to the best you can, unless you discovered new interest and you want to pursue something else, and that's another story. So we're moving to the next slide. We're going to talk about what is the purpose of an internship. Of course, a lot of you already answered that question, and I love that you have already this awareness about the purpose of internship. The key areas that an internship can be helpful with is to offer a closer look at the world of work. Many of us, have a certain idea about what work is, what a professional life is, especially when we're still students. And very often, the student experience or the learning experience, whatever you're doing, can be very different than the professional experience. Even the codes of conduct, the way you do things, meeting deadlines, can be a very different story than being a student or learning. So it's a really good way to try to understand that side very well and put into practice what you know. Internships allow you to explore different career paths. When you do an internship, you will be exposed to different interests, skill sets, kinds of people doing things. And this exposure can open your eyes to things you didn't know you would like, things you didn't know existed, things that may well be within your field, but you didn't even think that you could do them very well. So this is a great way, a great opportunity for you to discover different things, as some of you already mentioned as well. It increases your applied knowledge, as you guys mentioned, in field of interest and beyond. So it's a great way to apply knowledge, what one of you called turning theory into practice, putting theory into practice. Internships allow you to see what practical skills are important to have, even if they're not part of your degree program. So sometimes when you get trained, whether at university or school or vocational training, you may get certain skills for sure, without any doubt. They could be hard skills. You can even get some soft skills in school. For example, when you do a class presentation, it's a way of learning how to work with others as a team. It's a way to present, which is public speaking. So these are really good skills. But when you enter the professional world and start working in some capacity, you discover some skills that are important to do the job or to do the internship successfully, and that you still need to refine in yourself. So in that sense, it's a really good way for you to discover that and see what skills you also need, what skills you have, but they need more refining or more polishing, and so on. And I hope this makes sense. Lastly, maybe it's not the last point. I think we have another slide, but it increases your chances of obtaining permanent employment. Some of you mentioned that also. When you're, I want to say that if it doesn't lead to full-time employment, that doesn't mean you were bad or you didn't do a good job or they didn't like you. Internships, by definitions, they tend to be this transition of getting you skills and practice and experience, as we said. Some of them may lead to a full-time job depending on the situation. So this is not depending on how well you did always. As long as they don't tell you, we don't want you, leave, in the first month or in the first week, then if you continue and finish an internship, it doesn't have to lead a full-time job, but I would say a good number of times, there's a good percentage that it may lead to that. if they see you're doing the job well, if you're the right candidate, you're fitting the culture of the company, you're working well with teams, and so on. So the point here is that you should work very hard and put your heart and soul, do the best job you can, because if it is one that could lead to employment, then that will increase your opportunities. Next, what is so these were the key points, basically. I thought there was more, sorry, but those were the key points about like what are they for. The internship search process, how to think about it. I'm going to give you some of the key points that I hope will help you as a guidance to begin or to begin thinking about the process. Brainstorm the career interest and preferred industries and companies. Wherever you are, think about what are my interests, write them down. And then what kind of industries and places you would want to work for. Now here, you shouldn't only think about salary or, oh, they have a very famous name. I mean, these are good things, of course, but you should also think about you as a person. What are your values? What kind of contributions you want to make in the world? And what kind of industries and employers seem closer to your contributions? This is really important. I know that many of us, especially when we're younger, when we are finishing education, I can say we have the stress and anxiety. We want to get a job. We want to make money because it's important. We're young. We want to establish ourselves. Many of us go through difficult economic difficulties. This is very normal. But I assure you that focusing on places that also represent your values and what you care about will pay off in the long term. So I advise you to think carefully about that point. The internship process helps us, it also means to learn about types of internships. There are different types of internships available. For example, some are paid, some are unpaid. Some unpaid could give you more experience than paid ones in some cases. So again, when you evaluate, which we'll talk about later, be very careful about it. Some have a certain length of time. Some will give you maybe a hybrid sort of possibility. You work some from home and sometimes go to the office. You know, there are different types. Explore the types and what they offer and see which one works better for you. This is part of the process. Search for the internships that can help you build additional skills. And this applies to employment, by the way, in many ways. I would say this. If you go to a place where you are perfect in everything they need, what are you going to learn, right? You want to go to a place where you have something to contribute and where they contribute something to your skills, to your advancement and to your, to your entire profession, basically, right? Now, so I think that's a clear point. Let me know if you have questions about it, but it's a key point also. Connect with alumni. When you graduate from any place, any education training you do, make sure that the people there, obviously, they might very well be in very close paths to your career. So it's good to connect, to know what they're doing. And they could give you leads and ideas and even names of places that might be a good fit for you. So do not underestimate the power of connecting with others, which many of you already mentioned. Networking. I'm going to drink a sip of tea because so that you can enjoy my voice more. It's going to get worse later. Yeah. So utilize the career centers and career advisors. For those of you who are in universities and certain schools that have a career center, I know not all of you will have that option. I personally, for example, in my undergraduate did not have that option. So it depends on the country, the place. Not all of us have all the privileges, sadly. But sometimes you do. And if you do, make sure to take a full advantage of it, right? Because they do have advice, tips, names of places, names of employers. Sometimes universities, for example, they hold joint career events where employers come and see students who are working in their areas. And you can talk to them directly and give them your CV and so on and so forth. So make sure you're connected to that. Network on LinkedIn. This is very key, very big right now. LinkedIn is really good for professional sort of connections and reaching out and learning about opportunities. I've talked about this in many webinars before, but it's really important. If you haven't done it already, start building your LinkedIn as a professional CV and connect with the right people, the people that are close to your industry. and just be available there and have it ready, not outdated, for example. Attend career fairs when they happen, if you have access. I always emphasize access. Not all of us have access. Some of us could live in a rural area. Some of us might just not have a car to go to the career fair. It all kinds of situations. But if you do have the ability, I recommend that you attend those, because you never know who you're going to encounter, and seeing people face to face. Because part of getting opportunities is also people seeing you, how you conduct yourself, and then appreciating you as a person who would fit well with a position or with a company. So being present, whether on LinkedIn or going to fairs, can really be important. Set up alerts on internship notifications. This is a very clear and easy one. Moving to the next point. We're going to talk about how to prepare for internships in this section. And particularly, we're going to talk about the components will be the next thing, I believe. The components of the internship applications. As you see here, they're very clear, but also they're very similar to a job application. So I encourage you to think in two ways about this. First, in covering these components and doing them well, you're not only preparing for an internship, you're also polishing your skills to get a job later. Because having a really good CV resume, crafting a good cover letter could all end up helping you later when you apply for a full-time job, which in many cases, when you do an internship, it could be a few months after that. So this is a perfect opportunity. Honestly, it's a two birds in one stone kind of situation. You're preparing for two things at once. So you see cover letter, resume, interview skills are key. And this is a great opportunity for you to polish, to read about interviewing, to practice with friends you trust, people who can do what we call mock interviews, sit with you and pretend to be an employer and give you honest feedback, not just somebody who'll say, oh, you're wonderful. No, somebody will say, yes, the cologne you're wearing is too strong. The shirt, maybe the tie needs to be a little better. I think that's the best way to learn. Or you said this, but I would think more carefully about how to word this. Your answer here doesn't cover this. Somebody will give you real feedback. And then I talked about this, and this will come up multiple times. The online professional presence through LinkedIn, social media. Make sure that, for example, your LinkedIn is polished and professional, but also other social media. If you have anything public, I'm very careful about telling you what to put there, because you should be free and be yourselves. But the only thing I will say, ask yourself the very simple question. This thing I have is public. Do I want everybody to see it? Is that going to be okay? If the answer is no, I would think a bit more carefully about it, if that makes sense. That's what I would say. Don't forget to share your thoughts and ideas and insights in writing, in chat. We are watching them. And of course, your questions also. So please do that if that comes. Polish your CV. First of all, we have a Baobab course on career planning, how to write your CV. So if you haven't done that, if you haven't, I strongly recommend it. It's a very good course. I actually went through it myself and find it very useful and has a lot of good tips. Update your CV regularly. And by that, of course, updating whatever you did recently. Sometimes you forget that you volunteered for 2 months, for example, in a community service somewhere, and that could really help your CV, but you forgot to put it. Don't forget to put it, because a lot of things you do, they could really translate into skills and work that you've done. And volunteering could be a great one that we forget or ignore. I personally, I have volunteered even when I had a full-time job, like this job in the first year. And then things got very busy with other parts of my life, but I volunteered because I really wanted to. I was teaching English for refugees and immigrants here in the US, English as a second language. It was an incredible experience learning from all these cultures, from all these countries, and something that people's experiences in life and what they did and now what they want to do and so on. So I recommend you always update and do things. Tailor your CV for each position. By that, I mean, don't just put the same CV everywhere. This position might have emphasis on, for example, communication. You have 2 places where your work required really good communication. Make sure they are at the front. So make sure that you emphasize the areas that the position need that you have or you have done on your CV. Tailoring it is okay. tailoring is different than putting something that's not factual or lying, with all due respect. Lying is very different. Don't say something that is not true or factual just to tailor it so that you will look good. But whenever you've done something that is really related to the job, bring it to the fore, emphasize it. And that's what exactly I mean here. Seek advice, have colleagues, friends review your CV, make sure that they give you, editing, ideas, remove this. This is the best way to use your verbs and so on. Make sure your CV is concise. Don't make it too long, too wordy, concise, error-free. Error-free is important because you don't want employers to see you have all these errors and they'll say, well, how can we trust this person is going to do a detail-oriented work and precision when they haven't even bothered to perfect their CV, right? So that's a very good indication that you are careful and you know how to work. And then, as I said, factually correct. I think this goes without saying. It's very clear what it means. The cover letter. Introduce yourself. How do you compose a good cover letter? Making sure it covers everything. First of all, a reminder, it shouldn't be too long. Cover letters typically for entry-level jobs are 1 page. For more advanced jobs, they can go between 1.5 to 2 pages if you're very advanced, especially if you're research, academic, but also certain managerial position. I'm saying this to do justice to everything. So I don't know where you are, but it's good for you to know this. And the components of a good cover letter will be as follows. You introduce yourself for a good impression. You keep it short. You proofread. And this is super important. And I can't tell you how many people do this. Do not repeat your CV in the cover letter. I have a master's in this. I finished my bachelor's in this. In 2019, I worked. This is all on you. Don't do that. If you say anything from the CV, it has to be a new spin, a new way of saying it that is not clear. Well, not clear, but not captured or not possible to capture on the CV. So it has to be doing a different kind of job of you articulating it with more detail. So do not repeat your CV. This is really important. Demonstrate that you meet the requirements. Read the post carefully, what they want, what they're seeking, and how and why you have those skills. Finish the cover letter always when you end it with what we call a call to action. You say, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to apply for this position. I will really look forward to hearing further about the position from you. So you're throwing it back at them, calling them for action to call you back or to interview you. I'm very excited and delighted to get to apply for this. I will be really looking forward for the next step and so on. So that's a call for action. Make sure you know that. And also include your name and contact details. Many people forget that or ignore it, but remember, CV cover letters could go to different places from HR, then in the hands of a hiring manager. Papers could mix. So make sure all your documents have some kind of indication who is the person, what is the contact, because they could easily be lost, even electronically, by the way, just to be clear. That also does happen. So that's the point. Prepare for interviews, my friends. I know there's a lot, I promised you, there's a lot to cover, but I'm doing my best to be clear, but to also give you a really nice package of information. So I hope you all are finding it helpful. If you're hating me, write in the chat, I hate this. Thank you very much, goodbye. But that's the idea. I want to give you the best sort of robust sort of information for you to be able to learn from this and to prepare well for it. Preparing for interview, I think most of you will agree that there is no doubt that you need to have good interview skills. I don't think any of us disagree on this. It's important. Yet we are at different places. Some of us are shy. We have different personalities. Some of us never had a chance. Almost everything takes practice. So nobody was born with good interview skills. I just want to tell you that for sure. It takes practice and opportunity. Some of us never had that opportunity. Some of us were in places where some of us studied things that did not allow us that. They were very lonely, coding, programming, very little possibilities of doing that. So I understand that. But because that is the case, you need to prepare. So master your elevator pitch. What is an elevator pitch? Which is simply is this. You and I enter an elevator and you have to tell me from floor 1 to floor 10, we're going up to the 10th floor. You have to tell me in a very short time who are you, and what kind of career, what is your career statement? What do you do best? It's like it's a professional introduction in a very short time. Elevator pitch is a bit exaggerated, but it's a good metaphor for saying the best that you are in a short time. That is the point of it. So master it. Why you master it? Because in any interview, you will not have much time, and you would want to be able to articulate in a short time, what are you? Who are you? What is this about, right? Research the company position. I can't tell you how many people don't do that. And that's really important. And they end up not looking good in interviews because you don't want to go just with generic things. You want to see the company, what are they, who are they, and so on. So make sure you have knowledge of the company, their culture. Why? Because when you speak in an interview, you would want to connect who you are with the culture, with the values, what the company is doing, and why you can help them do it. So if you don't research the company, we're not going to get to that point, right? So also in interviews, be prepared to answer questions that are simple but very difficult. And I personally find some of them this is a personal opinion, they're unnecessary. Some of them they're not useful, but they're still asked and they're out there. So what we can do is be prepared and be articulate in how to answer them intelligently and wisely. Things like, well, these are the ones I don't like are not in this particular slide, but I'll tell you a bit later. But prepare to talk about your education, prepare to talk about your contributions and accomplishments. This is an important point, whether on your CV or an interview or cover letter. Don't also say, I did this, I did that in a very boring way. Turn what you did into accomplishment. So speak about everything you did in any job as accomplishment or contribution, not just as a duty. As a duty, you don't look attractive, but as an accomplishment, it's a whole different story. So turn the tasks into accomplishments in that language. Talk about your past experience, of course. And then what do you offer for the company? And that comes also partly because if you research the company, you will know how you fit and what you can offer, right? And be sincere, of course. Don't forget that. Why you should be hired. This is one of the questions. Why we should hire you? So of course, you don't sit and say, I'm the best one in the world. You're going to have to find ways to tell them, articulate why you have the right skills, the right personality, the right capabilities, and the right intention to learn new things also. You shouldn't only focus about what you have, also what you want to gain. You should also be prepared to talk about your future plans. And that doesn't mean, by the way, future plans don't mean like, I'm planning to buy a new car. They will be how within the company or beyond, you don't even have to say another employer or something, either within the company or beyond, what do you want to do professionally? And you're okay to speak even beyond, by the way. You can say, in the future, I wish to get to this point and do this and this. They will admire that. And if they see that even in the future, beyond the company, you would have something bigger, they might keep you. They will think about you because that's what you want. Prepare for interviewing for the day of the interview. This was general, right? The previous slide. On the day of the interview, I'm going to be very brief here because a lot of the stuff, I think you've seen it, you've heard it, but I'm emphasizing it. You dress appropriately depending on the interview, arrive on time, be respectful, and your best self. Be authentic, be yourself. And then this is important. This is where I'm going to emphasize a little bit. Many people go to interviews not having any questions. Now, it's crucial to have questions for several reasons. First of all, you should value yourself. It's not only them interviewing you. You should also interview them by asking them questions because, as we said, they should also meet your values. They should respect you. They should be close to your world and close to your path. And therefore, you're going to have some questions to ask, right? So have questions for them. But also having questions shows them you are serious, you're taking the work seriously, and that you've done your work and research and you know how to ask. So questions have to be smart. Now, the questions could cover these areas. These are examples. What are the hiring process expectations? What's next? What's going to happen? What is the rest of the process? You can have questions about that. You can talk about sample projects and tasks that they have in the company, to give you examples to get a sense of what kind of work is being done. That's another set of questions you could ask. You could ask about permanent employment. What are the opportunities for that? This one, I'll be a bit careful, like gauge the context before you ask that question. But it's not a bad question, and it's not forbidden for sure. It's just gauging the context. And as you all know very well, whatever questions we could ask technically could be okay, as long as we ask it in context and in a wise manner where it fits. So send thank you notes if you can. If you have the emails, for example, of people who interviewed you, send them a thank you after the interview, and that it was great to meet them, and mention at least one or two lines, one or two things that you really appreciated and loved about, being asked, or that they asked, or that they told you about the company, and so on. So do that, okay? If you don't have the email, you can always have the HR or the person who arranged the interview write one note to them and say, please pass my warm regards to the rest of the committee for interviewing me. You can also do that. Your online presence is important, as I discussed. I think I already gave you some thoughts about this. Polish your online presence, prepare your LinkedIn accounts, make sure it's ready. Networking can help a lot. And online can be a good start. If you don't know people, they're far away. If you're shy, sometimes you can begin by writing to a person. It always feels better. But then once you warm up, maybe it will be easier to pick up a phone or somehow meet them for coffee. So online could be a really, a game changer in connecting with people for a lot of us, I think. So that's something to consider. We do have a course on Baobab. It's called Maximize Your Personal Brand on Social Media. It can help you think a lot about how to think about social media, how to think about yourself on social media, basically. So if you haven't taken that course, I think it might be useful. Evaluating internships. How do you evaluate them? The top 5 tips for doing that. How do you decide? How do you consider them? Compensation or no compensation, depending on your situation. But I will definitely say, depending on what they're giving you. There are times when unpaid internship could give you a lot more experience than a paid one. And so you decide. There are times you really cannot afford. I'll be honest with you. There was a time when I got a really good internship in Washington, D.C. I got it. I got the offer. It was really good. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't go there, and I couldn't live there. And I didn't have anybody to go, help me at the time. I was new in the US. Just to be honest, like there were situations like that. And so that's why you need to evaluate and be very honest with yourself and your abilities, and find ways, strategies. Future job prospects. What can this give you for prospects for the future? Possibility of permanent employment. We talked about that already. Prestige. A reputable, good organization can really add weight to your CV, especially in entry level. Although I'm saying this, I will also say, do not only go for prestige though. Make sure that you're careful. There are smaller companies that can give you a great experience because they are in a stage where they will teach you skills more than a very big, famous, big name where everybody gets lost once they enter the door. I'm not saying that prestige is not good or good names, but I just want you to be careful how to evaluate prestige. I think it's more prestigious to really gain a good, deep experience than just a name on the CV. That's what I think. And again, it's me thinking here. Flexibility can help. Flexibility, what kind of flexibility it offers? The balance between study and work, especially if you're still studying, you would want an internship that doesn't kill your time or be at the expense of your studies, because at the end of the day, you want to graduate, right? So it satisfies your graduation requirements. There are cases when an internship could add or count towards your education. So if that's something there, I would definitely go for it. It could be very useful. Now it's your time to answer a quick question for us in less than a minute. We're going to ask you, when in your university years would you consider an internship? We're curious to hear for you. When would be a good time for you to take an internship? I'm just curious to see what people think. I see some saying sophomore, a second year, third year. I see a lot of people saying fourth year. A good number is also saying freshman, fresh year, first year. These are the American names for university years, by the way. I know in many countries we say first year, second year, third year, but freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, okay. It would be great for as many of you to answer, just to get a sense of where you are thinking right now.
It's very evenly split, which is
yeah. I love it. And I think there is no right answer. The best way to think about it while you're answering is that whenever you have time, a free summer or something, you should be improving your skills and getting professional experience. That is really the simple answer. So it's not wrong to do it third year, but it's really right if you're able to do the first summer and get internships. That's very good to do, right? Again, I don't want you to think wrong or right. Think about how take advantage of every opening in your life to gain experience, basically. So I'm glad that you all have these different ideas, and I hope that this helps you to get a sense and to begin working, especially in light of everything that we discussed so far. And I promise I'm going to wrap up very soon. So also about internships, we need to break some myths. In many places in the world, there are myths about what internships are or aren't. I want you to be careful, about myths. Some of them are misconceptions. They're not true. They say internships are only available for highly achieving students. That is not true. The whole concept of internship is to give people experience, people who need it also. But the idea is if you do a good job in preparing, chances are higher that you'll get one. So don't be discouraged or thinking, oh, I'm not smart like this person in my classroom. There's no chance. That is not true at all. Internships consist of beginner level tasks and boring work. That is also not true. And make sure you don't get such internships if you can. Internships can give you some really, really hard, soft, real skills that you need. And again, that's why we talked about the process and evaluating. We talked it for this reason. So many of them could be they could pay off. They could really be very useful. The best internships are the ones that are paid. And I already talked about that. So I think you all got the point that that's not true. It depends on what are you getting out of it. Sometimes what you get out of it that is not paid is much more valuable, Although I think ideally you can combine both. If you can work on getting paid and good. So that's a good combination. So internships rarely lead to permanent employment. Not true. In fact, they I don't want to say often, but a very good percentage they do. So that's something to consider and to think about as you do it and do very well in it, because it could lead to that. But it depends on the situation also. Internships are useless if I don't get academic credit. That is not true at all, because all the academic credits and the achievements you have, they may not be as helpful as having some professional experience on your CV for certain jobs. So think about that as the value in itself, the professional value. They exist for people with they don't exist with people for disabilities. Of course they do. And that is also not true. Although I would say there's a variation in different parts of the world. Not everybody is as prepared and as accommodating, sadly, but it all depends. But in many cases they are. And if you are a person with disability, you should not be discouraged whatsoever and try to find the places that are accommodating. And that would be the kind of places that you want anyway. You wouldn't thrive in a place that doesn't put all the work in place to accommodate different kinds of talents and people. Renowned and multinational companies offer the best internships. I already answered that. That's not necessarily true because it all depends. And I think you all remember what I said. Don't go just for the name, the prestige. That could be good, but look at what is in it. Look at the content of what's being offered. That really matters. You should only take an internship in your field of study. Also not true. We live now in an age of intercross multidisciplinary, where you don't just do one thing and forever. You have to know a lot of fields and cross a lot of fields to do a good job and understand certain things, right? So that crossing could be applying in jobs and internships. You could do an internship here that could help your skills in another area, that could help your degree and education, that could help you really land a really good job in a different industry. For example, almost every industry from healthcare to banking, they need IT. That's an example. So having the good IT skills in the context of hospital can help you a lot in healthcare as a whole, right? And so on and so forth. So I want you to think about how the picture is bigger than we think. And ending, as I promised, and I did my best, so I hope everybody doesn't hate me that I'm too long. But The 5 top tips to consider, my dear friends, is what, to close all of this, to put it all together. What do you really need to consider? And this would apply, I think, almost to all of you. Demonstrate your writing, interviewing, and communication skills. You're going to have an opportunity to do all this when you write your CV cover letter, when you interview, and when you communicate in general, whether through your writing or through your interview. Demonstrate it, work well on it. Research employees' cultures. We talked about this and why this is important, their values, level of diversity and inclusion, and so on. Number 3, consider physical and digital accessibility. And I think it's important for you, for example, to have that consideration depending on your context and your industry and what kind of things you want. Don't let your internship compromise your studies. We talked about this also, so I don't need to say more, but nothing should be at the expense of what you need to finish. Where in most cases, when you're doing internship, you're still studying or getting education or training. You want to finish that. That's really important also. Lastly, align internship with your career goals. Notice I don't say only with your education, because education could apply in many industries. You could get a degree in X and work possibly in 5 industries. So align it with your career goals. What are your goals? And for you to be able to do that, you need to define these goals. So I think this is it. Yeah, so before Q&A, we're going to give the chance to Angela to speak, and then we're going to go to Q&A. But feel free to keep writing about this. You have questions, comments, thoughts, please do. I'm so glad all of you are still here with us, and I hope this was helpful. And I will pass it to my dear colleague, Angela, who does have a lot of experience to tell us about her journey. And yeah.
Well, I'm going to actually introduce Angela again for those of you who joined afterwards. Thank you, Louis. That was fantastic content. We have a lot of good questions that hopefully we'll have time to get to at the end. We want to make sure we give Angela some time. Angela Nantambi, for those of you who have joined later, I introduced her when there were only around 25 participants. So Angela is a graduate of Ashesi University in Ghana. She hails from Uganda. She worked with the Baobab team in the summer of 2019 as an intern. She had another internship, I believe, in Uganda as well. She was a fellow with the Alumni in Residence program on Baobab, and later became the coordinator of that program, and later was awarded the Share Fellowship to study her graduate studies at Thunderbird School of Management. So Angela, you have quite a bit of experience landing internships, fellowships. You have another one lined up for this coming summer. So we'd love for you to share a little bit about your internship journey, maybe highlighting some of the things that you feel were important to be successful at winning these opportunities. And we welcome your questions as Angela is talking. She does have a hard stop in 10 minutes. So please post your questions in the chat.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tiffany and Louis. That was a great presentation. You've basically touched on all the things that I went through during my internship search, and I continue to go through, because I don't think you ever end when it comes to internships. So my experience is, let's see. So I've had about 3 internships that I've done, and I have one coming up this summer. And to say the least, my internship experiences started way before the internships themselves. So when I was in Ashesi in Ghana, I engaged in quite a number of activities. And in my first year, I'm glad you asked that question, Louis. In my first year, at the end of the first semester, I did a project. I thought I could do something. It was a new country. There was so much curiosity around me, so I engaged in a project. And during this time, when I was engaging with different people during this project, my conversations were around what can I do during my long break, summer break. So the conversations I was having with people each time that I met them was what opportunities are out there for young people, how best should I prepare? And at the end of my second year, I applied for quite a number of internships. And before applying, of course, taking into account having a ready resume, getting that reviewed by the career center, and just practicing with friends, the career coach, around interview questions, how best to get that internship, because so many people are looking for internships and you want to get an upper hand when it comes to applying. And the tricky part with my situation, which I think is for most people, is when you don't do your undergrad from your home country and you want to do an internship in your home country, there's an added layer of difficulty because people don't recognize your institution. People don't know you. There are already people in the country that are looking for the same internship. So why should they choose you? And the way I went about this was to network. Make friends with everybody that I met. Everyone that I knew was in my network and was already working was a potential network to help me lead to my next internship. And I continued talking with these people throughout my undergrad. And when it came to going back home, the conversation was usually like an informational interview I'm having with them. And through that, they realized that I needed an internship. Or I made my request very clear that, hey, I'm coming back to the country and I'm looking for an internship. Here's my resume. Here's my cover letter. I'm looking for this particular industry, but I'm open to really any work in these particular areas based on what I had covered in school. And so that really helped me and smoothen my internship search. Well, I got rejections, several rejections, but you don't stop there. You continuously apply and hope that one day, one time you receive that email in your inbox saying, congratulations, you've been selected for an internship. And in terms of compensation, 2 of my internships were not paid. So, and I did both at the same time. Interestingly, I had 2 internships at the same time. I did, in a week, I worked 3 times at one location and 2 times at another location. And of course, it's probably privileged that I had such an arrangement, but because there were so many students applying for different internships in the country, most of the places were filled up. And I was open to working 2 days a week for a particular location because that's all they could offer me. And with the 3 days, I figured I needed to find something else to do. So I looked for another internship and they were all unpaid. But luckily we had an arrangement in school. If you're a MasterCard scholar, really, there's always like a fund at your university that supports you during these internship seasons. So I banked on that and utilized the money that I got from there to take me through the various internships that I had that were not compensated. And I must say, those were great. I mean, they led me to obtain an internship with Baobab. I think a year later, when I was applying for yet another internship, I never stopped. I applied for Baobab. The Baobab platform has so many opportunities, and I landed on this internship opportunity they had and applied. This time I didn't know anyone. I was just shooting my shot and believing that I was qualified enough to do the job. And luckily, I got the internship, and that experience has been transformative, so much so that all the activities that I did during that time went on to lead to more work. And that work led to me applying for graduate studies. It helped me narrow down my interests. And here I am today, continuously working for Baobab through an internship that I started in 2018. And the reason that happened, I was thinking about this, is because one, I built relationships while at this internship. For sure, if you're going to find yourself in a new location, it's not just about the work that you're doing. Yes, it's important, but getting to know people individually that you're working with also helps you, because then it's during those conversations that you can openly express your interests, what you're about, what's your life story, how does it intertwine with those of the people that you're working with. And in having those conversations with the people that I met, I expressed what I was interested in. I was very clear at the time that I'm into communication, I'm into writing. It's a skill that I want to build over time. And when an opportunity came up a year after my internship, they knew that I was interested in this kind of work. And they called me up, and I was, of course, delighted to jump onto the opportunity. So in addition to all the great things that Louis has shared with us today, I would add that while at your internships, build relationships with the people, network, be curious, ask questions, because it's in those moments that someone is going to notice what you're interested in. And when something comes up, they'll recommend you, they'll know that you're there, and they'll keep you in mind when other things come up. And stay in touch, because after the internship, it doesn't end there. They could be mentors to you. It may not be a job opportunity, but they could be mentors. You could be friends with these people that you worked with, and you never know where you're going to find yourself a year or two later. So just build those relationships. And in terms of post my internship experience, of course, I learned a lot. Some experiences were a way to see that I'm not actually interested in those things. I discovered during my internship experience that I was not into banking, though I had a banking internship. I did several research projects and realized, yes, I'm probably into this. This is something I would love to do. And of course, when I'm explaining myself, when it comes to interviews, moving forward in different internship opportunities I come across, I explain how all these different internship experiences have built me up to this point and have helped me figure out what exactly I want. Interestingly, my next internship right now is totally out of my comfort zone, and it's something I'm exploring. But that's the goal of internship. That's the whole point. You can make mistakes, you can learn. It's not a permanent job, and so I'm really looking forward to exploring. And in that, I would probably add to the attendees here: put yourself out there. An internship is a great way to explore things you've always wanted to do, things you're curious about, things that are in line with your class content, things that are outside your class content but are curious about. It's a great way to explore. It's a great way to experiment and know what really works, what doesn't work for you. So I would say that that's been it about my internship experiences, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Looks like we have one question just for you, Angela, on, before you sign off, on how long one should do internships. That's from Idris.
Right. So how long as in the period that you should do an internship?
Yes, and I think we should add how many. It's actually a good question. And how many also.
Okay.
Yeah. Together,
right.
I think would be a great way to help a lot of people think about this.
Okay. So I think there's no cap to how many internships you can have. You can have as many as you can get. And my program was 4 years. So in that 4-year period, I probably had a chance of doing 4 internships. But I did 3 internships during that time, and they were 2 to 3 months, depends on how much time you have. And I've seen some friends that have continued to do internships even during school time. So maybe they were working on projects that they could not finish during the 2-3 months, but they have to go to school. They add maybe a weekend on a Saturday, they continue working on those projects, or they dedicate a certain number of hours during their school time to continue working on this project. So I don't think there's a limit to how many internships you can do. The better for you, especially if you don't have any experience. Your internship, in addition to the different projects you ran, community work that you did, it speaks volumes to the different job opportunities you'd want to land once you graduate. So you can always do as many as you want.
Yeah, and I will add to Angela's point also that there's no limit. Definitely during your training and education, you should do internships, because they're going to build the CV that a lot of you are having the stress about, oh, but I don't have experience on my CV. So that's when you build that experience. That's a way. But then there's also a point where you become more ready for entering jobs. So I just want to warn a little bit that we should not be always afraid of breaking that and thinking, oh, this job is too good for me. No, after getting some internships and experience, there is a point when you say, actually, I should try this. I should try this. Start aiming high, and that is okay also. So just to say that also.
Angela, do you have time for one more question? Or do you need to sign up?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. My class starts in 40 minutes. So
okay. So first of all, Zainab commented, hello, Angela, thank you for sharing your experience. It's very inspiring. My question for you here, and just reading some of the comments, what advice do you have for individuals who have applied for internships and not received them? How do you maintain your confidence level? How do you overcome disappointment? And then also, if you don't have an established network or experience that would lead to this internship opportunity that's desired, like what advice do you have for overcoming those obstacles?
Right. So in terms of rejections, you're going to receive those because, I mean, if we were to all get all the things we want in life, we would be happy people. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. And I would say that the rejections that I received at the time, they prepared me for better opportunities. So it's not enough to send the same resume to different opportunities and you keep getting rejected and you don't make any change. It's important that if you're sending the same resume and the same cover letter to different places and you're getting rejections, find out why. And most of the time I realize these companies are actually open to sharing why you didn't get the internship. If you're lucky, they will send you an email as to why. They'll send like general information about why you did not make it. Or you could reach out and ask for specific details as to why you did not get the internship. Not because you want to get that job, but to prepare for the next opportunity. So I would say, yes, it's not the most exciting thing to do or to go through rejection. Nobody wants to be rejected, but it's in these moments that you learn something and you step up and decide that you're going to do things differently. If it's a cover letter that is not working, maybe ask someone to look at it. Maybe your grammar is not so great. Maybe your sentence structure is not great. Maybe you're not actually capturing your skills and knowledge in a way that people understand and makes you stand out. So that is the time you probably want to take advantage of your mentor, of your career center, to find out, why am I not getting these internships? Maybe you're applying for the wrong internships because not all opportunities are for you. And the thing I realized for me during school is that I was getting bombarded with all these different opportunities in different places. And I realized that most of us were just applying to every internship that we saw randomly because it's been sent to us, we should apply to it. But really, when you go into to understand what the internship is about, maybe you're not as interested, and that is going to come out in your resume, and it's going to come out in your cover letter because you don't sound as enthusiastic, you don't sound as passionate, you don't sound as interested in this opportunity as someone else who is interested or passionate about that particular opportunity. So take your time to understand what the internship is about. Does it speak to you? If it does, express that in your cover letter and resume. If you're rejected, find out why and try to alter things around. Ask for help. Your career coach is the best person to help you in this, your mentor, your friend. Maybe you're not practicing your interviews well. You're just rushing into an interview just because you've been doing this. But it takes prep work. And usually when you put in the work, the results would show for themselves. And to respond to the question about networks, if you don't have networks, well, I would say you're definitely meeting people. It doesn't have to be, one thing that I see around networking is that people think the most important people are the people working at big organizations or the CEOs, the managers. It's the people that you're meeting at your church, your local community, parents to your friends at school, your professor, your the person you meet at the gym. It's all these people that you're meeting that you don't know what they're about. And the moment you express yourself and tell them what you're about, what you're interested in, and get to know them, you realize that maybe they know about an opportunity somewhere. And so the issue with networking is not clear cut. It's not defined that when you talk to this person, it's going to work. You don't know what's going to happen with whoever you're going to meet. So continuously interact with different people. If there are networking opportunities at school, engage with them. engage with your friends, because I know students at school who actually helped students get internships during my time in school. So it's not people that you're going to meet at, I don't know, a Google event or something, or a CEO or a manager somewhere. It could be just a regular worker, but they know someone who has a job. So don't downplay all the people that you're meeting, because they could lead to something.
Fantastic. So much information. Thank you. I think you covered all of the questions that we prepared in advance of the webinar. I know we're 6 minutes over. If you're able to stay with us, we can continue to answer some of the questions that you posted live. For those of you who need to sign off, thank you for joining us. We will have another webinar next month with Louis on navigating research methods. Is that the name of it, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
And that is on March 29th. We also have an event with Elizabeth McDonald called Networking Demystified, which will be moderated by Angela. That is about initiating conversations on LinkedIn and unlocking its potential. So if you want to learn more about building your network for the purposes of internships or jobs, et cetera, please join that session. That is on March 15th. So for those who have to sign off, I just want to thank Louis and Angela, also Grace, who's here, another Baobab scholar, and someone who knows how to go after opportunities. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for this fantastic session and all of the information. If you're able to stay, we'll continue and go through some of the questions, but I know, Angela, you do have class and need to sign up.
Yeah, I'll stay for another 10 minutes to give me time to walk to school.
Okay. All right, well then let me go back. We have several related to CVs and resume. How do you write a good resume for a role you're interested in, but you have no experience in it yet? That's from Okawa and Yako.
So, I mean, that's a question that I saw several versions of that question, which is that we talked about it also, the egg chicken question. I don't have experience to get the job, but to get experience, I need to get a job, right? So how do you do that? And that's why we need internships. And another question I think I saw somebody asking is that, how do I get internship without experience? That's the whole point of wanting to get internship, is that you don't have it yet and you need it. So do not be afraid to apply to internships when you still don't have much experience. That's number one. Do get internships to build that experience, number two. Number three, there are many ways where you can put experience on your CV, even as a young professional. For example, if you volunteer anywhere, in a church, in a community center, anywhere, in any place in the community where you did help, that counts as work. You worked with something. It also counts with skills, because you're going to need certain skills to volunteer and to work and help in the community, right? So those count as work, and you can add them to your resume. If you finished a course on Baobab, on any skill, that counts as a soft skill. You can add it to your CV, right? You know, in your studies, if you presented as a team in your group with other students, or if you did a project on turning a piece of wood into art in one, you know, whatever, you know, course you took, all these count as work and skills. And the point is to think about the fact that you have many more skills than you think, and add them to your CV. So all these could work. If you haven't done any community volunteering, then do. I do think we should do that, because it can count towards your CV, towards your experience, and it can really teach you skills. As I said to you earlier, I volunteered even when I had a full-time job, because I really wanted to. I was really enjoying it. I don't know if Angela has anything to add to this question. Anything else?
Yeah, I could add to that. So for my internship that I'm actually doing this summer, I don't have any experience doing it. Like, I have zero. But the selling point that I had for that while I was applying was the skills I have obtained from the different internships in the past and the jobs that I've had are what's going to make me a good candidate for that internship. And I'm looking forward to learning so I don't have any experience in this field, but I have the skills that are going to make me succeed in this role. So it's essentially about you being able to articulate your skills and convincing these people that you'll be good at this job and you're looking forward to learn. That's what I would say about it. You don't have to shy away, just be confident in your skills.
Okay. We have a question from Julius, and it is, how do you write a cover letter without knowing the internship you're applying for? So for a purpose, like a situation, a career fair where you need a general cover letter.
That's a good question. Thank you for asking it and for choosing it, Tiffany, because the idea basically is that you do have to start somewhere. So have a generic CV and a cover letter. But here, generic doesn't mean it's not good or it's lacking. A generic means something really well done, but it's wider. And then, depending on where exactly you want to apply, you can tweak and tailor your CV and your cover letter. So the second important layer to this, you do need to tailor them for the right job or internship you're applying to, if needed. Sometimes if you're an early, or young professional, your CV and cover letter might not be that long. They might be very already covering everything. So you may not need to add much in terms of changing them, but simply adding a part speaking about the company, why this company, why you want to apply to them, why you're interested in this internship or in this entry-level job, and so on. That's the best way to go around it. Okay.
And also, I think Vona also wanted to know how many pages to keep your CV to. Like, what is the ideal number of pages to?
Yeah, that's another good question. I would say no more than 2, usually, especially for entry level. The idea is that no more than 2 pages. In very advanced positions or research positions, they can go longer, but that's because you need to capture certain things, not because you're more important. But for example, in an academic job, you need to list a lot of other things that matter for those positions. But in professional life, in general, no more than 2. I would say that's the maximum you should go with.
We have a question from Wahidu. He wanted to ask live. Wahidu, you have audio enabled, so go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'm so happy. My name is Wahid Urmonde. I'm from Benin Republic. My question is about the interview. With regard to someone who is applying to the job, and during the interview, manager can ask him the question about the salary. How could he answer to the question?
Very good question. Very good. Yes. Mm-hmm. The salary questions are tricky. So here's the thing. You shouldn't ask them in the early stages of the interviews. For example, if you have 3 interviews, it's better not to ask in the first interview about salary. If the employer gives you a sense, usually in the job post, sometimes they give you the range of the salary. That can help a lot. Or sometimes they say depending on experience and depending on certain factors. But later in the interview, like let's say the second round on when you are in the final interview, you can ask about the salary. So you will have to say, when you get to the questions, I'm interested to know more about the salary, the range of the salary that is offered for this position. When you know you have advanced and when you really like this job. And that goes also to the employer. When they like you and they're interested in you, they may ask you, what is the salary expectation? I think you mentioned that also in your question. And the best way to answer is that to say, what is the range offered? To ask them back, what is the range? And so if you feel you have a specific salary demand, you can say, this is the range that I'm interested in. Again, if you're in the advanced stage and if they asked you. If you're not sure, if you really like the job and you want to sort of give them a good answer, you can always say that I'm willing to consider depending on the entire package. And that way they will have to tell you what is the salary and what is the package, and you will consider it. Now, sometimes when you get an offer and they give you a salary, you can also negotiate and you can return and say, I'm very interested in this offer, but I would like for this number, like offer the number that you want for the salary. And that also is possible. I do recommend you read about how to negotiate a salary after getting an offer. There's a lot of literature out there published, so you can read it and try to make your best decision about what you think is the best way to do that, because not everything we read we go apply, obviously. There's tons of articles on everything out there, right? But do it depending on the context and how you feel in that exact situation, if that makes sense. So yes, you can ask in the advanced stages. If they ask you and you're not ready or you have no idea about the number, you can ask for a range and say, what is the range in this position? If they give you a range, the advice is you go for the highest in the range. So for example, if the range is 70 to 80, they tell you this is the range we're offering, 70,000 to 80. This is just an example. You ask for something like 78, 77 at least. You can go that in the upper range. That's usually the advice. But it's very hard to give advice on this because it will really depend on the exact situation. I don't know if any other things to be added here.
Thank you so much for that question. Just noting that Angela does need to sign off now. So thank you again for joining us. We did have some requests for the slide deck. What is the best way to do that, Louis?
I don't know, do we email them usually to people or not? I'm not sure, sorry.
If you would like to receive the slide deck, maybe send an email to support@baobabplatform.org and we can provide that to you. The recording will also be distributed later. I have a question from Zainab. Did you have any problems during your internship? This might have been for Angela. If you have
that before going.
Okay. How did you overcome any problems you had during your internship?
I would say challenges differ, but one challenge that I probably had was financial because the money that I had wasn't enough to cater for both the internships. It was a big stretch that I took on, but luckily I had a great support system and just really decided that I'm going to do this for 2 months. And after that, I'm going to forget about it. So I'll use the resources that I have and get it done. Then the other challenges that I faced at the internships, and one that I've often heard people say is, I'm afraid to talk to this person. So confidence problems, because you feel like because you're an intern, you don't have anything to offer. And so you're in your corner silently just doing what you're told to do. Great, but that is not helping you. As an intern, the more you put yourself out there and confidently talk to the workers at the office, talk to your boss, schedule for lunch with co-workers, the better you're going to enjoy your internship experience. Because then for me, it's conversations that I've had with people outside the workplace that have really, really been fruitful in helping me as a person, but also me learning about these people and how best they are willing to help me. Because usually at work, people are so busy, they are dealing with the deadlines they have to work with, and they are not probably giving you as much time as they would love to. But meeting them outside work really, really helps. So don't feel like you have nothing to offer because you are at the internship to learn. So apply yourself, be curious, and ask the questions. If you find that maybe in the assignments that you're being given, you don't understand anything, ask for help. They are willing to help you. And the mentality that I'm here to prove that I can get things done. Yes, you are, but if you're going to get things done in the wrong way, it's not going to help you. So if you're going to ask for clarity from your supervisor, from your coworker about a particular assignment, it just goes ahead to show that you're interested and you're willing to put in the work to get the right thing done. So ask questions, just be curious. And if you have any challenges with coworkers, I know sometimes they may come up, talk to the supervisor. Usually the people that are in charge of internships are very nice people, and they're willing to help you throughout your internship experience. Just talk to them and let them know whatever challenges you're having. And not that you're complaining, but you're asking for help to navigate your internship experience better.
I just want to say this is really good advice, people. Fantastic advice. So do make sure to see it from a first hand, obviously, also in this case, really important.
I'm glad, Zainab, you are still here to hear the response to your question. We have time for just a couple more, and then we have to sign off. Thank you, Angela. Have a good class. So, Louis, what is, quickly from obvious, what is the difference between a cover letter and the actual CV? And maybe if you can clarify the content of the two.
Well, the cover letter is separate from CV. CV is where you put your education, professional experience, you put the languages you speak, you put the awards you've had, and so on, right? A cover letter is basically you speaking to the employer. I'm happy to apply for the position of X that was advertised here, and I'm the position perfectly matches me because, and that's one page where you write that goes with the CV about why you're applying, why you are the right candidate for the job. So these are two separate things, and there are lots of courses on cover letters, separate, how to write good cover letters. I think I gave you really good components already in this presentation, but you can go and search for more. And then separate courses on how to write the right CV, a good CV. I think we have both in Baobab. Do we have courses for both, Tiffany?
Yes, we do.
We have courses for both on Baobab. I know we do the CV. So this is also something you could also look at.
Okay, and one final question. If we did not get to your question, please feel free to send it to support@baobabplatform.org. We've just gone over 20 minutes, so we couldn't unfortunately get to everything, but happy to respond to those questions. You've sent them to Baobab at support@baobabplatform.
Yeah, we always go over time because we like you and apparently you like us. So that's good.
So Helena asks, sorry about my voice. I want to have a remote internship due to my current engagement. Any recommendations for finding remote internships?
So it depends on where you are and the industry. Obviously, a lot of places nowadays do have options for remote, but sometimes depending on the country, whether you will have a lot of opportunities or not. But the good news about remote is that because it's remote, many parts of the world, anybody who would accept international sort of, interns or international even employees would be open for that. So the question is to use the right websites, the most used websites where you can look for jobs. For example, Indeed.com is always good for finding jobs, and you can specify remote jobs, or you can sometimes just put the title of the jobs that you're interested in and get the daily feed of what jobs are available. So you can do both. You can look for all remote jobs, which may or may not be close to your area, or remote, or put specific job titles. And when you feel a job is open and available remote, you can apply for it. So that's the best way I can answer it, but it will depend on multiple factors. And I think you can try it. We are in a better time than ever to be able to do some remote interns if your area allows it, or if it's available in your area of work.
Louis, did you want to say anything else about your webinar next month?
Well, next month, my friends, the webinar will be called Navigating Research Methods. And in it, I will talk to people who are still studying at any level, basically, even if you're doing a bachelor's or thinking about writing papers, but you want to do a master's or a PhD later, or you want to become a researcher, how to think about research, how to think about the different methods of doing research, qualitative, quantitative. I'm an anthropologist, and so it's my area. I've done a lot of work and research in this stuff also. So we can talk more about how to think about your methods, what are the methods available to use, how you can be creative in your methods, how you can respect the people and the data you work with and be very careful about handling it. So it's about research methods, and I will make it as clear and not simplified, but simple, meaning that it reaches people and people will benefit from it and enjoy it and learn from it. So the purpose of it will be to have a wider audience to get to understand research methods, and even make it less complicated than it usually is by talking about it in ways that are accessible to people to consider and think about. So I'm looking forward to having those of you who are interested in this topic. And we have other topics between now and May. So just so you know, yeah.
And just one final note, please, if you can, take a moment to respond to our post-webinar survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear what other topics you'd like us to have for future presentations. And thank you all so much again for joining us. Thank you to Louis and Grace and Angela, who's not with us anymore. So everyone have a wonderful evening, night, day, wherever you are in the world. It was lovely to have people from representing so many countries with us today. Incredible. So thank you.
Take care, everybody.
You and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.